All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Miller. I'm the Executive Director here at the Middleton Chamber of Commerce, filling in for Kristen. I'm sure you're used to seeing her run these. She has a big list of items that I need to make sure I get through or I'll be fired and she'll never let me do this again. So I want to take a minute to recognize our sponsors, TDS and Upper Iowa University. Their support of this program allows us to get quality speakers and provide this to our members free of charge. Just a quick reminder before we get started, please make sure that you're on mute. Looks like everyone is. Consider turning on your camera. I know it's really nice to be able to hide behind the scenes, but it really is nice for the speaker to be able to see that there truly are human beings out there paying attention. We will be monitoring chat, so feel free to ask questions as we go, or raise your hand, however you want to try to get our attention, and then we'll try to get those questions answered as we're on the topic. There will be Q&A at the end as well. So with that said, welcome to the Middleton Chambers On Track program, all about communication tips and tricks. This event is Body Language Actions Speak Louder Than Words, and we have our friend Mike Baldwin here from Madison College. Mike is an account manager with Madison College Business and Industry Services team, having over 20 years experience in the professional development of human resource spaces as a coach, mentor, leader, and I mean all around fun guy, right? He guides teams in developing innovative solutions to people, process, and mindset challenges. So with that, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate that. Bottom line is always fun, but yes, the resume has taken me a lot of different places, and human nature is a funny thing. So please bear with us, keep an open mind. The topic for the day and the mere fact that Middleton makes this available, it's about awareness. It's about you stopping to think a little bit more about everything that's around you. And this is a perfect topic. And knowing that we all work very hard, we're very busy doing whatever. Let's just talk about some of the things we may not necessarily audibly hear, and really looking a little bit deeper into, again, I call it sometimes the unspoken word, the things that are assumed, the things that are on the margin, and the crazy things. And like Kate says, I love to see people. I love to see all these boxes that are not black and they have a name. And you get to look at people because you can tell a lot about an individual by asking or saying nothing at all and just watching. And if you do nothing else from this, I'm going to strongly suggest that sometimes you just sit back and you listen to the world around you, watch what's going on, make some interpretations, and make some quote unquote assumptions and judgments that way, and see how close you are to the real thing. So have fun with this. We'll take notes. I'm going to talk a little fast because I've got way too much information, but good stuff. So please feel free to throw the questions out there as we go, as long as Kate will watch those. Just some things to set you up, and I'll get right into it. We've been in 24 months of sheer virtual meetings just like this. And imagine that you've got people like myself, the talking head, who will give you a whole bunch of stuff, throw some slides in front of you and say, here, you should glom onto this, you should absorb this, and this is the word, go and conquer the world around you with all this. Wouldn't it be nice just to have a few of those meetings, some of those interactions, those collaborations back in person, where I know that when we get done with this in 30, 60, 90 minutes from now, you're going to remember about or less than 10% of the spoken word. However, if you sit in a meeting and you watch people, you see the things that are going on that actually don't necessarily make sound. You interpret and you say, okay, plug in the spoken piece with what's actually going on in it, around it, and you may get a completely different meaning. And quite often that is the case. We are interesting creatures, no doubt, as human beings. So all those body movements, the facial, the arms, the voice, the tones, all of those things have meaning. And it's open to varying interpretations. So don't take this at face value, quote unquote. There are certain things, and because we are creatures of habit, we're going to do over and over. And many of us share those attributes and traits. But we've got some of those, what we'll just call Kate-isms, because she's first on my page here, that, she's going to do certain things, from the happy, sad, mad, and glad to how Valise might be showing herself happy, mad, sad, and glad. And then even down to the poignant pause, to the, there are certain things that just made me feel like, what? Mike wasn't really believing in what he was saying. And what were some of those nonverbals that kind of gave it away? What are some of the things that said there's more to the story? That's what I want you to do with people, places, subjects, not to be suspicious, but to say, is there more meaning inside of that than perhaps meets the eye or the ear? It is about what we hear, not necessarily what is said, but what isn't said. And I think we all know that we've been in situations you're just like, okay, does Mike really believe in what he's saying? We've got Politics 101 for the next 90 days. We're going to hear all sorts of wonderful ideas and concepts, speeches, etc. We make a science out of it to watch people's gestures, from the hand gestures to the eyes, to how they stand, to even just how they look, down to their hygiene. And we will, quote unquote, judge them for their sincerity, for the trust, and say, well, I'll vote for that person, or I'll follow that person, or I think that guy is lying. I'm pretty much a realist and a straight shooter. So between the lines is where I operate. Read between the lines, say, what is it that I see or I don't see? It does come down to us saying, you know what? Stop, look, and listen. That's not quite what this one is, but again, just to kind of give you a sense of where I come from, we're interesting creatures. It's crazy. And just when you think you know somebody, all of a sudden, boom, you don't. So it's a curveball. There's going to be something when we talk about this that, hey, you know what? It's what we see, but it's also some of the isms behind it. Great case in point from a voice. You hear me. And you can say, well, the tone is there. And I think his purpose is to be informative. Hopefully it's humorous. Hopefully it's respectful. And it's motivating and soft. But as you plug it in there, this is one of those things that makes a big difference. And it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. So I want to get this out there just to give you some form and function around, okay, Mike, this is about nonverbals. But think about some of the things on the inside of when they are talking that kind of says, hey, I should listen a little closely, more closely. I should say, okay, what does that mean? What is the slang? What is the optimism that Mike is throwing at you and others? And then even down to a speaker or yourself recognizing the formality of where you're at. What is it that my voice goes up and down all around, or am I monotone and I don't want to listen to this person ever again? Whoa, okay, you've heard that. But I also want to say, how can you tell if someone is genuine? Can you look at someone virtually in the eye or in person and kind of go, yeah, I believe it. And I do believe that they have my best interest in mind as well, from whatever it is they're trying to give to me. The caveats there, of course, is it depends. Subject matter, audience, location, the occasion. Those things are all going to influence the message and how it's delivered. Bottom line, though, what is the intent? I am trying to tell you, am I trying to sell you something? Am I informing you? Where is it that I'm going with this? Because my words and my actions may not match. So let's run with that. If nothing else, you can talk, Mike can talk all about, here I am in third person already, can talk about all these different ideas and things. But if you feel that you do not trust me, we might as well not even have a conversation. That sounds dramatic. But if I'm giving you cues, if I'm giving you things to say, doesn't feel good, I am all about the gut check. If there are certain things, the mannerisms, just the setting, or even just how I start talking, how I start to present myself, how I continue to hopefully engage you, you're going to wonder, it's like, wow, sounds cool, but there's something missing. There's conviction. And I'm not so sure that I want to continue to be on the same path as the person that's next to you. And then the magical, it's not magical, the negative wild card is no matter what someone does, I can say anything, I can promise you the world, I can make all of my actions hopefully point in the right direction. But if I truly want to deceive you, I can. If I want to say I have a motive, but I'm not giving it to you up front, and this is the terrible part of this day. This is the terrible part of this presentation, but it's true. If I want to lie to you, I can. If someone says, I've got an underlying motive and it's not like yours, I don't have to share it with you. And I can exhibit all of these behaviors that are still consistent with a positive message. And then again, back to that intent. If I want to have a relationship with you, I want you to believe in what I'm saying and doing, I'm all in. But I can also be that deviant and do all the things that, again, may be under the covers or things I'm not going to share with you. That is my disclaimer for the day. One of two. We've got all sorts of things going on. So we can study, and we have studied quite a bit. I'm going to show you a few things. I'm not going to get too deep into the research. However, our subject matter that we're looking at right now, and this is just a small 20 shots of various emotions and reactions and actions. And you can probably make tons of assumptions about each one of these. We're going to hit some of the very good ones, some of the very popular ones, because I'm all about that emotional intelligence piece. We have a whole piece on this separately, but when you think about it, and you see people all around you having experiences with the world around them, there are at least 400 emotional experiences a day, which you may or may not be aware of. And you basically are a billboard. You're showing your true colors, if you will. How is it that you react to some of the primary emotions? And we'll get to those pretty quick. So we can, and I suppose all of you, I should have had one blank here that says, and put your picture here. Your picture goes here. And if we had to, I actually have an exercise like this where we say, give me something that says, this is your happy face, sad face, glad face, scared face. We can interpret and say, okay, what does that mean? What does it look like for everyone? Are there differences? We have similarities, absolutely. However, again, to ground you in the nonverbals, we all, as human beings, basically have these 5 core feelings. And that's the stuff that shows up on our face, in our gestures, our hands, to the wiggling of toes, to feet, to eye rolls, and all that stuff. But it's great to, one, know that, again, we have all, I imagine, have all experienced all of these at some point in our lives. And so you're like, okay, that's great. But again, sometimes we wear it on our sleeve. Sometimes we can verbally emphasize, yes, I'm feeling a certain way. But these are all the things that tend to drive that nonverbal space. And it's interesting because the easy ones, happiness, sadness, anger, those we see pretty straightforward, pretty simply. And you see other intensity levels here. And you see, well, what does that mean? And we got plenty of adjectives to expand upon what it means, what it looks like, what it feels like, or how we can describe it. And then you put in some of those things on the far end with that afraid and the ashamed. It's like, okay, we'd like to say that we've got rainbows and unicorns and everything going on in our world. And that's awesome. But I always say when push comes to shove, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, how do you handle those 2 columns on the far right, especially in a workspace? How are we trying to collaborate people who may be much more sensitive when it comes to managing their anger or their ability to manage their anger, or to take certain stress, certain stimulus that's not so positive, and how are they able to keep that in check while actually working with those people around them? People are going to believe at least 8 times out of 10 that if you're matching, or I guess lack thereof, if your words are not matching the body, they're not actually coinciding and aligning with what we don't hear, that takes a punch into our credibility and integrity. And there's plenty of statements and places where we see, okay, well, what does it look like, sound like, and feel like? I'm going to give you a whole bunch of examples here, because again, I want you to really be able to interpret. And if you remember where you were or what you see, politics aside, we use politics and religion quite often to demonstrate these things. But it's amazing without being able to actually hear what's going on within each one of these particular scenarios, how people will wear their emotions on their sleeve. If you remember the upper left corner, George Bush, and is there anyone who remembers what that picture is a picture of or what was going on at the time? Chances are good if you had 9/11 on, you saw that, okay, he's in front of a group of children and this gentleman is now informing him of what's going on. And if you were watching this on the news, you're just like, whoa, something has really changed. And you didn't have to hear a word of what was going on, but you could tell it, okay, we have problems. Upper right, lower left, again, everyone has their way of dealing with certain stimulus. And that's just the way we are as human beings. This one, again, when you're actually signing a major document, left, okay, we're going to declare, picture yourself in the role of Roosevelt declaring war against a part of the world. I can only imagine what he's feeling. But again, the solemn face is telling you 1,000 things already, something's not happening. Hopefully everyone remembers Ronald Reagan on the far right. We talk about the Berlin Wall, another great example. And anyone recognize this one? It happens everywhere. It doesn't need to be politics. But Kevin Costner actually bringing his words, his emotions, his relationship to the public at Whitney Houston's funeral. And if you had heard any of the excerpts from that, you'll be like, okay, there was a lot of emotion, a lot of nonverbals going on here, even down to the tipping of the head, to the eyes, to even just what are people doing behind him. Everyone here has a story, and there's a storyline going on within a story. And people are processing what they hear, and then they're internalizing it, and then they're showing the world, here's what's going on in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Sports, I got more than enough examples. I don't know if we have any Michigan fans, sorry to hear that, but sometimes things just do not go your way. So you see people go from jubilation to absolute horror to how they handle stress and angst. I had another one where there was actually the opposing fan inside or in between. So you got one guy jumping for joy, and then you got these two guys over here ready to just strangle him. But again, that's the humor you have within sports. So the emotions are all over the place. We all share in those 5. And again, as you go through these and you just say, what's going on in the mind of this gentleman right here? And again, these are completely unrelated. But for those of you who may have children, nieces, nephews, or whatever the case is, you've probably seen this one coming from one of your children at some point in time, or adults at some point in time. But you tell me, you interpret that. We have stereotypes and we have generalizations. Key here is getting to know more about what's happening inside of that child's mind, what's happening in the situation. Here's some typical ones. Dumb question. Yeah, there is a dumb question because it's my question. So has anyone yawned today? I imagine if you said no, you're lying to me, which is another subject. We'll get back to you. However, there's enough talk about, okay, if I'm in a room full of people and I'm giving a speech, chances are very good. If I see any of you yawning during this time, I'm going to feel like, not interested, not connected, not collaborating. Are you bored? Well, no, there are some physical attributes to why we yawn, but at the same time, it has come to being that when we see that happening in a social setting or in a business setting, that we associate that with someone who is disinterested, someone who is not engaged. It could be that they stayed up late last night. Okay, anyone's got Hulu? Boom, that just killed us. I've got plenty of 2 teenagers at home. It seems like they sleep only when the sun is up, which is strange. But I do see them yawning at the dinner table. I do see them saying, okay, I'm like, you know what? It might help if you actually slept because it feels like you're not listening to dad. So I don't take that personally, but they're good kids, so I give them a waiver on that one. The fist bump, a clenched fist, often associated with anger, often associated with stress, with irritation, but translation says all of a sudden we got the fist pump, which again uses some of the same exact muscles and thoughts, and it's on a positive side of things. So there's a lot of different ways to translate these. Is it an exact science? No. Sometimes people ask, okay, have you ever, gentlemen, been in a room, in a meeting where someone, guys or gals, have been playing with their hair? What does that mean? There's a whole bunch of different things tied to that. It could be stress. It could be boredom. Could be they're just uncomfortable or they're nervous about maybe what is being said, or someone who's in the room, or they're thinking about they present next and they've never presented in front of a group of 200 people. You could spin that and just say, you know what? It could be a mindless habit and it is not attached to any particular meaning. You could go even further and say, hey, you know what? If you go into the social aspects of this, it could be an actual method of flirting. Believe it or not, it goes across the gamut of positive to negative to intense all over the place. So there is no one way to interpret. However, I'm all about situational leadership. Consider where you are. What is the subject matter? What are we talking about? Who is the audience? What is her role? Professionally and personally, where does she connect to the subject matter? Why is she even in the room? You know, all those things have context, and those are the things you need to make sure you're interpreting along with your initial action or reaction to what you see. We'll talk about this one, and I only could find a couple different pictures that I could use here. So I'm looking at this little eyebrow lift right here. Anyone do that? Anyone use that as one of their, Felice is nodding, so I'm going to ask her about that when we get back in the office. Yeah, you're kind of like, you know, what does this picture say to you? What is this person asking you to do? What are they reacting to? How are they reacting? Quite often, we will see that, okay, there's surprise. He could be worried about something. There could be fear. And those are commonly the first three emotions that we see, or actions, reactions that we see when it comes to this particular nonverbal. Ask yourself, have you ever been one of those who has their hands on their hips? And you can translate that a number of different ways. Sometimes it's one of those pieces of frustration. It could be showing disapproval. It could be them commanding attention that something is going to be coming up, or they're going to say something, or they're going to give you some sort of action, reaction, rebuttal. You tell me what it's going to be. However, it could be, I'm tired. I just got in, lifting 250 pounds over here at Ironman, and I got to take a break. And also could be just that, you know what? I'm here. I'm a modern, assertive individual. And you know what? I'm commanding a little bit of authority in the room. It's about posturing, and posturing is a great word. Really, it's about you bringing yourself into a situation and providing the room with, where do you stand, quote unquote, on an issue, or who are you, maybe by title, what is your role in the room? So that's not uncommon. I think we've got plenty of times where we've got the unhappiness, and I am not related to this individual. I don't make children cry as far as I know. Police don't answer, but you know, you've got one of those that it doesn't take much sometimes. We are, and we're proving this every day, especially within the last 24 months, our emotional radar is certainly on high these days. We're getting more time to think about how things affect us, how the world is impacting us, how we're managing stress, how we're managing negative or not so happy news. Seems like every day you can open turn on the news, and the first 10 to 12 minutes are not necessarily the most uplifting messages. That's why for the last 6 months, I'm like, oh, I'm going to take a break from the news, and that's just fine. What about, have you ever had anyone, or have you checked your watch in the middle of a meeting? Again, you may be sending a signal to someone that just says, when is this going to be over? If there was a way for me to put bubbles above our heads right now, I would love to know what you're all thinking. And you're going, this is human nature. And it's actually funny when I go into some meetings and I know these people, and I will honestly sit there and say, I bet I know what Kate is already thinking on this. And I will either smile, I will shake my head, or I will rub my eyes, I will rub my temples. I will do all sorts of different things to show the room where I'm at. You will do the same. And I don't want you to not to turn off your screens right now so that you can't see what you're doing. You're not going to insult me. But it's just interesting that the more you watch people, the more you learn about their true motivations. Questions, comments, concerns, anything as we go along, please throw it out there. Take these for example, and again, remember context. We may see that there's some guilt, suspicion, someone who's afraid, someone who's about to tell you what's on their mind, and it may not be a positive message. We also have some people right in front of us that crossing their arms like they are content. Some may be unapproachable, some may be resisting your ideas, but some people are just like, take me for what I am, and here I am. It doesn't take much for you to stop and just look, and sometimes that poignant pause will buy you some time to further examine who, what, where, when, why, and how. Where are they coming from? What is that context?
Mike, we do have a raised hand, Elise.
Oh, no, I just have a comment about reading the room. I found that throughout life that the better that I understood my emotions, that I could understand others' emotions well. So
excellent catch, Felice. And I put those emotional intelligence pieces on the front end. And if any of you have time to really get into that, the idea, I am very much a Bradbury supporter. I'm not selling books, but for you to have a grip, and I'm just going to paraphrase, to have a grip on what makes you tick, know the triggers for yourself, understand what makes you happy, mad, sad, and glad. And don't overthink it because it depends upon the stimulus, depends upon the situation. But the better understanding you have of yourself and then self-management, so it's self-awareness and self-management, the better you're going to be at recognizing others, some of those similar emotions, some of those similar actions and reactions. And you don't have to know everyone's middle name or the name of their dog and cat, nieces and nephews. But if you know some of the subtle cues that someone's coming unraveled, someone is stressing out, someone is having a bad day, or someone's having a great day and you want to pile onto that great day, know those triggers, know how it affects you, but also know enough about the person to say, hey, I can't treat everyone the same way. And I think certain people, knowing they're having a good day or bad day, will react or be acting such a way. Sometimes take the time to just say, hey, Jim, how's it going? See, you're a little down today, or not quite your energetic self. Everything good? Sometimes those are the things that will preempt mental challenges, that may preempt things from, the bad things you see in the newspaper or on the newspaper. That's old. Bad things you see on the news that maybe you could have seen the cues that something was not quite right with someone. Again, I'm not here walking around being suspicious of others or saying, that one time Valise, she was really ticked off about that. And man, she wanted to go out and raise heck with somebody or take it out on someone else. Sometimes just being in the space that I've been, you've been able to just kind of say, life's actually pretty good. And here's why. Here are all the good things you have going for you. So great point, Valise. I appreciate that, calling that out. The clenched jaw. There's that's the pouting and the annoyed. And again, not to use children. And luckily, I know this is none of your children. So, those are the things that, okay, I've seen some adults exhibit some of the most childish behaviors or facial expressions that I've ever seen. In fact, they're better at it than some kids. And, I shake my head and I consider the source and I'm like, okay, I get that. But it does actually sense or actually signal that there's some angst, there's some emotion coming at you. Be prepared. I also know that the best thing we've ever had, the thing that we can actually see is, the smile is revealing exceptionally, it's healthy. It's one of those where, I have seen people smile and they were actually lying. They were smiling, but they had no happiness inside of them. And as crazy as it sounds, and sometimes we want to get rid of wrinkles, look for, and if you can see this, look for the crow's feet. People and research has suggested that, again, those who are having a robust, genuine smile are going to exhibit such that they cannot control what's going on right there. I mean, I think we all know people that just that they have a quote unquote good smile. There are some people that just light up the room just because of they physically have this boom. It's not about teeth whitening. And again, humor, I help. You know, it's really people that are saying, you know what, they are genuinely feeling a great sense of self. They're honestly either feeling happy with you or for you, and they're also having a good day. Anyone with the eye wink, again, little things like that, you're just like, okay, I'm connecting. I'm saying, you know what, good mood. Maybe there's some, it's not deception behind it, but maybe it's not completely out of the fog. There's a little something behind it, kind of going, oh yeah, Mike, I agree with you, wink. Well, that takes it down a different path, such that maybe I'm not being upfront and genuine, and there's more to the story. We've been stressed out, and I'm mixing this up. It's interesting, again, you wear your emotions on your shoulder, on your face. That's where it all comes out. And as we look, and we'll go through these a little quicker, watch for some of these things in the folks that you work with, the people you love, the people you hang out with. And again, if there's concern, please reach out. That's not what this is all about. But there is no one way to interpret all of these particular photos. We do know the stress is on the move. Stress is on the up. It's still there. I'm sure all of us have actually exhibited stress in some way, shape, or form. But how are you managing it? Self, and then how are you managing it in the folks that maybe directly report to you? If you are leaders of people, watch for some of those cues. And I bet that some of you have probably done the eye roll, the eye rub, the hair pulls. Sometimes it's just the body gestures that will just say, hey, I got to take a break. We need to be looking more at that mental health piece, and it is definitely showing on the faces of our peers and our colleagues. It could be, and again, bad things happen to good people. We get that. But for us to be able to recognize sympathy versus empathy and be able to say, you know what, this could be a good time to actually say, I can feel what's going on. How can I help? How can I help you manage what's going on? That's a great space to be in. We're all about, I hope we are, we're all about happy. If you've ever done this before, look at a pet, and this has actually got some substance and research to it. This dog is always smiling. If anyone disagrees with me, please raise your hand. However, studies again show that we as a community, we're bringing a whole lot more of our pets into hospitals, into hospice, into mental facilities. And there's an absolute correlation to, not just because it's a pet and that doesn't talk back, but the mere fact that I don't know if there's anyone who can look at this and not at least crack a smile, or at least kind of say, hey, you know what? I remember when I had a pet or a dog, whatever. And the mere fact that I can go home and actually say, you know what? Unconditional love, and it just kind of keeps flowing. I'm like, well, that's a good day, because number one, I know I'm not going to get any feedback, or I'm not going to get any negativity out of it. But sometimes you just have to surround yourself with some of these pictures, some of these photos, some of these people. And as silly as that sounds, we actually can see that people, when they put pictures up, I don't think you've seen, or maybe have seen, people that are putting quote unquote negative or not so happy pictures around themselves. Seems like human psychology 101. But these are the kind of things that sometimes you just step back and you look at that picture, and that brings you about to a better space. Apologize for talking so fast, but this is a whole day event that I'm packing into our 1 hour. So I'm just getting your brain thinking about, well, no kidding, Mike. Seriously, 98.6% of what I'm saying, you were probably saying, yes, I do recognize that. What I am trying to do is just to get you a little more cognitive, to say, you know what, slow down and stop, look around you. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to actually be a little more, recognize certain things that are happening around you or in yourself that says, hey, you know what, I can be a little more sensitive about not just what I say, but stick up for what I'm saying by the physical parts of me that go along with the message. Really quick, the list goes on, and I didn't want to bore you, quote unquote, with all of the isms that come along with us in the workspace and in our social circles. been in HR long enough, bringing people in, taking people out, the talent part of it. This is such a short list, but if you've done any hiring and firing and interviewing, eye contact, I cannot emphasize enough, even just us as individuals, as human beings. I don't like people that look at the floor. I don't like them that look at their shoes. I don't like the idea that, honestly, when there should be that 50, 60, 70, 60 to 70% eye contact, even just with us having a conversation, it could be about comfort. It could be about the relationship before, perhaps I can say it's like, someone who doesn't make eye contact with me, I could be suspicious because they're uncomfortable just with their social skills, their cognition that, this is how communication goes. This is how we exchange meaning. I understand that for certain people. But for the people that I know, and they're tapping a pen in the room, or they are fidgeting, or playing with their hair, some of the little isms, or even whistling, or kind of looking up in the sky as I'm giving a presentation, I'm going to wonder. Again, I can give you 90 probably examples, but I can say so much, or you can say so much to me about our relationship by what you do or what you don't do. 2 more on this one. Excuse me. We know there are hand gestures all over the place. We get those. But the handshake, remember when we actually used to do that constantly? And now you don't know if you should do the bump, if you should do the elbow, if you should not do anything. Should you extend it? Should you put it through your hair? You don't know. And then there's that uncomfortable, clammy, cold hand. Or should I come in straight across and come in with a vengeance? Or should I give it a little tip? Should I go this? What should I do? There is etiquette. If you're going further than 1.5, 2 seconds beyond that, then it gets weird. And again, just having done this and having interviews and having done enough of those conversations, all of these things are sending me a message. And again, you can interpret them a number of different ways. It really comes down to even your own communication style and how you translate some of these things. And if you tend to be falling into some of these categories, this is a completely different piece of material, but I wanted to bring it in because again, interpretation is a big deal with that. And just your style is going to say, okay, I'm going to interpret, or I'm going to say, hey, I can work with that, but I need to interact with that person. Here's how I'm going to communicate and change my way. Because again, when we've got over 90% of this down to tones, modulation, body movements, face and arms, I don't have that long a time to get to communicate with you. And honestly, I've got one shot sometimes. And again, first impressions make a big deal. Such a big deal that Mike came up with his top 5, I call them nonverbal strengths and irritations. And go along with me as you wish. I have been trying to get away from the eye roll as much as I can, because it was one of those things as I've been growing up, quote unquote, getting more professional. When I heard something, I'm just like, you've got to be kidding. If you had a bubble above my head sometimes, I would just say, you have got to be kidding me from what someone just said. And I would do this thing right now. I know you can't see me, but wow, that's a big one, because that indicates to the people around me that Mike is not satisfied with something. Mike's not on board. He's either saying, I can't believe this is going on, but I got to be careful to say not do that too much. I'm also big with the head nod. And I can tell you, I can send you a gigantic signal just by doing this. That's it. And my friends know, they're like, if you're walking by, Jim and I, we've known each other. I don't have to say a word to him, but I'll just kind of go, yep. It's acknowledgement at its minimalist. And it's great. Jim doesn't need any more. If he's busy, I'll just give him that to let him know I know he's in the room. That's it. And we are connected and I know you're there. It could be as big as the single eyebrow raise. And this is tough. Hold one and try and raise the other. Some people can't do it. But that's also one you're kind of going, really? You're questioning, or a surprise has come your way. But you're signaling to the room that you were caught off guard, or there was something that maybe you were not aware of and should have been aware of, or you got blindsided. Again, translations will vary. The don't look at me, that goes back to my conversation about eye contact. I do want to see people connect. I am all about that. And I'm also about watching people's eyes across a room. and how they are engaging with the folks in the room, and especially with me, of course. And then there's my favorite, and Kate kind of took the wind out of my sails, but she gets credit for it. It's the, I'm on a virtual call and I'm on mute and my video is disabled. I know we're all busy. I get it. But engage with me. I know you came here for a reason. Thank you, Jim. I know you all came here for a reason and you got other things to do. But tell me that I'm important. Let me know that what I've got to say is actually something that you came to hear and you're taking something away. That's a big deal for me these days. And again, we've been doing this for 18, 24 months now. But you know, it's one of those where I would like to think that I've got you. So you're engaged in the conversation with me and our time together is more important, or is the most important thing in your life right now. Because if you do nothing else, again, slow down. It's about relationships. It's about relationship management. It's engaging with the world, and it's the emotions. I talk about it so quickly, unfortunately, but I know that as you think about, you know, am I really connecting with the people around me? Am I sending the right signals? Am I sending the right messages? And am I interpreting how the world is taking me in? I know that sounds profound. And you're like, Mike, I don't have time for that. This takes milliseconds for you to take it and say, Kate's listening, Release is listening. Someone agrees with me. Someone disagrees with me. Someone says, hey, I'd like to hear more about that. That's where this is going. And that emotional intelligence piece tells me that you're going to act 99% of the time in somewhere in this world. And there's not just 5, but the core feelings do exist. And that's psychology, human psychology 101. So because I've given you so much to think about, I'm going to leave you on a positive note. And again, it is not time for you to overanalyze everybody. But it is a time for you just to be aware that, you know what, watch the things, look for the things that you don't hear, the things that you can see and you can interpret, but make sure you're asking questions. Make sure you're not making assumptions prematurely. And the mere fact that I talk about intent, especially in my HR world, I talk about reasonable and prudent. I think we are all here. I know we are all here for the right reasons. And we're here to support one another just as human beings. But we're going to take interpretations one way or another because it's cultural, it's where we're born and raised, it's who raised us, from where we come from to what we believe in. So that's a gigantic part of trying to translate all this and say, here's how we can get along. Here's how we can communicate. And again, sometimes just to stop and watch the room unfold in front of you, you learn a lot about people that maybe you didn't stop and take time to do before. So that sounds all great, fine and good, but there's an awful lot more to it. So that's just me sharing with you a few things to think about. And again, open to interpretation, but the mere fact that we have time to do it, I appreciate it.
Can I jump in?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mike, you were terrific. And I see my
Thank
buddy
you.
Van Nuts on the call here too, but it was a great reminder, and I'm a little older, but at my age and stuff, I was under house arrest for 15 months with COVID, you know, and had to do everything on the screen and, you know, Zoom calls and all that. And it was very frustrating to me because I couldn't agree with it more. You got to go face to face. You know, you can only learn by arm actions, head actions, and whatever somebody does. And so this was a fantastic reminder for me, and very uplifting because it makes a lot of sense. And people, as you suggest, should stop and think about it a little bit. And the one key thing you said, if you really learn a little bit more about this, you can learn how to help others. And that's so very, very important to me and what we do. So thank you for spending the time and sharing with us. I thought it was terrific.
Peter, I appreciate that. And again, anyone who just takes a little bit away and says, you know, stop for that one moment, it's amazing what you might learn and learn about yourself. So I appreciate that. Good to hear that.
Dan, did you have your hand up? No.
Mike, can wondering if you have any tips that you like to kind of use as you go into a meeting to try and remind yourself to do that, kind of stop and look. Any advice you got?
You know, and again, I don't know what your preparation for any meeting is, but I've got 5 bullets sitting here in front of me that I knew that one, I either need to say them, be aware of them, or know that it could come. So part of that is anticipation. And here's an oldie but a goodie, know your audience, right? So I come into this, y'all are coming to hear about something called body language, actions speak louder than words. So you're intrigued. And so you're like, what does that mean? I come in knowing that I will have a virtual room full of people I do not necessarily know, coming from all aspects of life, professions, et cetera, et cetera. And so I do kind of, in my prep, say, what could possibly come from Jim at AT&T because of the industry he might come from. I also know that I'll do a really quick, and this might sound silly, just what's going on in the world today? What are some of the things that might be on your head, right, in your mind today? It could be the election that happened 2 days ago. 2 days ago, yep. It could be the economy, the gas is more. Some of those little things that I'll key in on to know that you can resonate and we can relate to it. I've always got my anecdotes and stories. I got way more stories than I got sense, but it's a lot of fun just to sit back and see all the crazy things that people do. But it's basically a blackboard for me just to kind of say, man, the crazy stuff that happens in this world, and then the sad stuff that happens along the way, how can I make that work for people so they can understand, or at least they can deal with it? And I do mix, long answer, sorry. I look for those anecdotal things that say I can speak to as many people in the group as I can so they can relate. It is empathy. So this is a really big topic. That's the hard part. So, and my apologies because I'm throwing so much at you. I want you to be aware, but I do have that one thing in common, or that one thing I run to. Just like Peter was saying, take a moment and internalize this, self-reflect, and kind of say, well, Mike mentioned this, but I'm so darn busy, I don't have time to stop and do that. It would behoove you to do it, just because, again, people, horrible word, judgment. People are judging all of us every day of our lives, correct? And that's just the harsh way to put it. But you have the opportunity to certainly influence that, to leave that impression, a lasting impression or a last impression. What do you want to leave? Sounds inspirational, but think about it, because we see people that we will never, ever see again in our lives. But then we also have a great group of people right next to us that we're going to keep impressing, quote unquote, or making impressions upon. Not a bad idea, just to get to know them a little better so that I can probably help them help themselves, or feel better about hanging around with me. We're people, we like other people, we like friends, we like relationships.
We have a couple comments, a lot of praise for the presentation. Great topic and presentation. Thank you from Maureen. Van Nutt agreed, and great timing given the transition back to in-person gathering. And then Lisa here at our office says that her daughter and her twirl their hair when they're in deep thought. We call it our thinking hair. This is a good reminder that it can also make us look bored or unengaged. And Mike, I think I'll take your last response to the question, like, what do you how do you prepare yourself when going into a meeting? I've had a really, really hard time with virtual. I have no problem in public speaking. The more the merrier. It gives me more to feed off of, and not having that engagement and not being able to read people's body language or have that interaction, even hear giggles, or like, it's just it has made it really, really hard to present for me. And so trying to figure out how to maybe prepare myself mentally, taking some time to prepare myself mentally for these virtual meetings would probably be somewhat helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about being self-conscious, but you can't help it because you're not getting the feedback that you would in a room. because people will tell you if you're on target. Everyone likes to see a head nod or a smile or Mike, you're doing okay, but you don't get that now necessarily. And I honestly try to get people to smile. I will throw, and it's silly, but throw some humorous anecdote just out there to, one, make sure people hear me, but two, also to see, am I resonating? Are people like, okay, sounds good? Because I want to at least have that idea that I'm confident in what I'm saying. People are listening. But you're right that the virtual piece has really kind of taken away that initial approval, if you will, that what you're saying is actually interesting and people are with you. So that's, and I'm like you, I can do 500 people in front of me, no problem. I can do 500 here, but yeah, that I lose that intimacy, honestly, and I miss that.
What other questions or comments do we have for Mike?
Hi, do you mind if I go?
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was really interesting and builds a lot on what you kind of already know, but maybe don't put into words.
Yep.
So I appreciated it. So I am starting out in a new career and happen to find myself going door to door to businesses. And generally, I get a no. So my question is, do you have any tips on how to get from, first of all, get from the no to a yes and stay positive about it? Like after a long day of hearing no all day, it's really hard to present yourself in a positive manner. Do you have any tips to like get back in that after you're already feeling negative?
Yeah. Sounds again silly, but that happy place, where are you most comfortable? What are the things that make you smile without even having to go through some of this garbage some of this not happy time? What are you learning along the way, or what are you hearing from folks? And I don't know how you're starting out your conversations, but remember that people are stressed out. Even the people that I thought were the most calm, cool, and collected, like myself, are showing some signs of resistance, saying, oh, what do you want? So people are actually having things. It's like, and there's two thoughts here. The people that are like, I want to give you something. And then there are the people that are just like, I'm too busy for you. I get that part. But, look for some of those patterns as to when you speak, are you doing some of the things that we just talked about, from the eye engagement to some of the, the pleasantries to the strong handshakes to the bumps and that kind of thing. Those are the things, again, you got 30 to 45 seconds to make that first impression. And then I'm going to decide, do I want to continue to have a conversation with Anna? Mm-hmm. I mean, that is a general rule that we often fall into. I don't know if you're seeing any pattern. And when I say patterns, again, people are all going to act or react, not knowing what your profession is.
I have healthy vending machines.
There you go. And you've probably got your sale, you've got your quote unquote, your pitch about the product, yeah. But we're really into emotional wellness. We're really into health and well-being from the neck up these days. And I don't know if you're talking more about, how are things going? How are you keeping your sanity? Not quite that way. How are you keeping your sanity? But, what are the things that are making you feel good about the goodness that's going on in this world? I mean, it's not all bad. I don't want you to say, oh yeah, inflation went down 0.1 the other day, so we're on the way up. But find the things that they can resonate or things that they can relate to and say, you know what, gas went down to I didn't pay so much for that lettuce or whatever it is. Find those things that you have common ground and relate that to what your profession is or what you're doing. I know it's great. I just don't know you well enough, but love to talk offline on that, because that's really, how do you relate the positivity and the upswing and things that are going on to what you do? How is it that you're a part of that? How is it that you can be a bigger part of that? And then that kind of puts you into the, hey, you know what? I love Skittles or what? I'm sorry, peanut M&Ms, and I'm like, that's your comfort zone. It's your comfort food. How do you put that into your spiel, for lack of a better term?
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, we'll hang out for a few more minutes if you have additional questions for Mike. Just a couple of upcoming events I wanted to throw out there for you. But before I get to that, thank you, Mike, very, very much for your presentation. It was extremely helpful. Thank you to everyone who attended. Thank you for being here and participating. Couple of upcoming events. We have our trolley tour on August 16th. We have 4 spots left. If you're interested, you can find all of these events on middletonchamber.com. Business social hours after the trolley tour. So if you're not into the trolley, you can join us at Capitol Brewery afterwards on August 16th at 4. And then we have workforce strategies, navigating the road ahead. I don't think there's one of us on this call that hasn't been affected by the workforce issues right now. That's on August 23rd. And then if you're looking for a really fun team building event, whether it's with coworkers, clients, customers, Sporktoberfest is the event for you. It's a ton of fun and a really good way to team build. So again, middletonchamber.com, or you can always contact one of us here. We can give you more information. Yeah, tell your friends about us. Tell other business professionals that you think would benefit from our programming. We're here. And that's it. We'll stick around. I am going to stop recording. If you have any other questions for Mike, we'll stick around for a few minutes.